Well, welcome to Music Monday of the Ozarks. Glad you're here. Today's program is by an old friend of mine, Rick Davidson. I've known him since junior high, and we were in the first band, which was a Jarrett junior high school band. And he's been a musician around Springfield for a long time. So at this time, Mr. Rick Davidson.
Hi. Hey, Bo. Hey, everybody. There was a guy by the name of Chips Moman that recorded us in Nashville. He became a big-time producer guy there. Okay, let's see what else. Things started falling apart. Mark Morton left the band. And the next guy that we got was, I think he had just moved around into Springfield to go to college at Drury. He was John Dillon. John played guitar with us. And you know what? I don't know. I don't get it, but loud guitar players. These guys were just, that's all I can remember. If you were a guitar player, you played it loud. That's about it. Fielder left. I think Bill DeLange finally came in and played bass after Mike left. Lots of other popular bands then started springing up. One was called the Lavender Hill Mob that was around for a long, long time. I think Morton went to play in that. And then kind of spotted through all of this period of time was a good friend of mine. His mom was my 5th grade teacher in elementary school, and it was Dean Billingsley, and we played a lot on and off forever and forever, that's for sure. I do have one story I'll relate. Since Dean's not here, that's good. It was back in the old Rockaway Beach days. I had a 51 Chevy. Me and Dean would load it up, and we go play a place called the Still, the old Still. There was Rocco's and there was the old Still. Middle of the summertime, hot, really hot. We would play 4 hours on and 4 hours off for 12 hours. Then you'd get a 12-hour break, and you'd come back and play 4 on and 4 off. And that's the way they did it, and that, deal at the old Still. Anyway, one day we were driving down there. It was hot. It was in the middle of summertime. Dean took his shoes off, and I went, Dean. I made him stick his feet out the window because they smelled so bad. And actually, it was the last week. I didn't really call anybody else about this stuff. I'm not really writing a book, and I could have called a lot of people to try to help me with my memory, but I called Dean. He goes, okay. And I told him that, and he goes, okay, you're going to tell that story, then I'm going to start telling the story on you. And that same weekend, you were banging some girl in a hotel down there, and we were all watching in the window. Oh, great. Dean. There were Holiday Inn tours with Dean. We worked in around Harrisburg, Illinois. I think it was down around in southern Illinois. We worked a gal out of Nashville named Lynn Bailey. The bass player was Robbie Ditzenganner, and Willie Richardson played keyboards when we could get him to stand up straight. Okay. Into college years. This all went through college stuff and moved into like maybe 69, something like that. At that time, you could take drum lessons for credit in college, and I was all over that, of course. And that's when I met up with Lloyd Hicks, actually. Lloyd would always be waiting for the next lesson, or I'd be right behind him. We took lessons from a guy named Winston Lyons, who was a great percussionist and trumpet player back in the old days from there. Did all that. Got to be good friends with Lloyd. 1970, early 70s came along, and the Esquires were gone by then, and we formed a band called Irving. How that name came, I have no clue how that ever came or where it came from. It was Charlie McCall and Bill DeLange, Mark Morton and Tommy Bellman, and Bob Conrad. And I've got some pictures over there of that I found, but I didn't find Conrad's, and I don't know where that went. But I do remember Conrad was in the band, because we had to haul that damn Beef-3 up a couple of flights of stairs to practice, and it was totally ridiculous. That band was the first band and only band I've ever been in with two drummers. Charlie played drums, and so we both played drums in that thing. That was fun, and it was good. It was a good band. It was a hot band. Early 70s, I moved to Arkansas, and then later down into Texas. I was in the clothing business and worked for a clothing chain. And so I was gone for quite a while, actually, 3 or 4 years. The next thing I've got written down was somewhere between 1975 and 1960. I had moved back, and there was a friend of mine named Donnie Cunningham that we were talking one day. I don't know where or when it was. Is that where it was? He said, "Man, why don't you try this washboard?" Because Donnie was into bluegrass music and he was into acoustic music, and talked me into picking up a washboard, and here you go. So from there, the name of the band was Homegrown. Worked with Frank Erdis. Don Randolph played bass. And a guy by the name of Morris Crowder. I mean, at the time, wasn't really sure, but look back on it now, that guy was great. I mean, he could throw it out there and yell and stomp, and it was a good one. He was a good one. I'll say that, Okay. From there, we moved on into late 70s, around 1979, probably pretty close. I started jamming with some guys down around Silver Dollar City in the lake. And I think the name of the place was the Pub and Grub or something like that. There were a couple of places down there. We got together and started playing, formed a band, ended up being called the Undergrass Boys. It was Dave Wilson and Bo Brown, and George Horn, and myself. I wanted to try to do something a little bit different in direction on the washboard, because that's such a clown instrument, and it can be just a big pain in your butt and in your ear if it's not done the right way. And what I was trying to do was just blend, basically. So I used some different techniques and stuff with these guys. All I was trying to do was blend with them, because they were really good players. It was pretty unusual, because I called it a jam band. I thought that's basically what it was. We got popular at Winfield. We went to Winfield to the festivals and stuff every year. Most of the songs we were doing, we would take old pop classic songs, and most of these songs would last 30 minutes. One song would last probably 30 minutes. And that's why I thought I called it was a jam band, but it was great. And it went on, we did like 4 years at Silver Dollar City. I think it was 4 years. Might have been a little bit longer. We did a college tour stuff that Bob, I think, talked about. We made one record at Pat Chicani's and Nick's place. And to this day, every once in a while, we still do reunion gigs and stuff. And actually, yesterday, we played a set over at Lindbergh's, and it was great fun. We're not together or anything. We show up, and when it happens, it happens. Okay, let's see. That was on into about 1984, and at that time, I started kind of digging into mixing sound. I was mixing live sound. Was what I was doing. A lot of them were, it was all basically local acts. There was a popular spot I remember in the basement of a bowling alley, and I can't remember the name of that place. Do you guys remember it? Amador. Was that what the Amador? And that's what it was. It got into that gets into the Jay Floyd era. There was a band, there was a guy from Jeff City, Jay Floyd, that was down here, played guitar. Todd Jones played bass. It's got me back into playing drums a little bit then at that point. And there were tons of different bands around at that time, and I was doing sound. Went through the Jay Floyd era, back into playing drums there. It was just a three-piece there. Well, actually, no, Donnie Thompson was the fourth guy. He was guitar player. It was Jay and Donnie and me and Lloyd. Moved into Jimmy Frink and the Motion. I don't know if you guys remember anything about that. Just different local bands. Actually, Ray Cardwell, who's in a pretty famous, popular Nashville bluegrass band now, played keyboards in that band with Jimmy. And I did sound for them. Katie Kaufman played drums. There was a girl drummer at that point then. There was a band called the Couch Dancers. There was a band, I was in a band called the Rubbernecks. There was the Dog People. And of course, that was Lou and Ron Grimp and Donnie and those guys. And Soup. There were the Morels. There was the Lord Mac Blues Band. These are just names that just popped up when I was at the kitchen table trying to figure out what I was going to say to you guys. Actually. Okay. Went through that period, and I think it was probably beginning in '86. Phil Pojar left the Daredevils. They gave me a call, said, hey, we need somebody, and I ended up going to work for them. And that was about a 6-year run. First 4 years of it, I just did sound only. The last couple of years, year and a half, something like that, Steve Canaday was playing drums then. He got tired of it and got off the road, said he didn't want to play anymore, and I ended up playing drums for him for maybe 2 years, maybe at the most. I mean, I don't know what I was doing playing drums with them, but I did. And they were kind enough and brought it along, and it was great. It was great fun. We did a European tour with them. I did. I worked a lot with them in Canada. They worked a lot in Canada, a lot in the mid-northwestern provinces of Canada and the States. Oh boy. Okay, here's a good one. This is another little Daredevil story. I don't know for sure where we were. It was in a big city somewhere. I think probably Minneapolis, in a hotel. Okay. You come in late at night. You finish the job. Okay, you're in bed. You get up and you got to pee in the middle of the night. Okay, you're kind of fuzzy, and you're in a different hotel every night. Okay, one night you turn left to the bathroom, and the next night you turn right. Well, that night I turned the wrong way, and I heard the door slam behind me. I was in the hallway, and I was totally naked. I mean, and I roomed with Soup. Soup was extremely sound sleeper. You couldn't wake him up. Shot a cannon and went off in front of him. So I'm banging on the door, and I mean not a stitch on. And in the hallway, and you hear the elevator running, you're going, oh God. Ding, ding, ding. And you're hoping it doesn't hit on your floor. And at the same time, I still had to go to the bathroom so bad. I couldn't stand it. So I down the hall, and I found a vending area and ended up peeing in the drain of a Coke machine. And that's just those stories is the way they came about and what they are. And finally, Soup opened the door. It was, I mean, he was a sound sleeper. Now, there was only one other guy that was that slept more soundly than he did, and that was Bill Brown. Okay, Bill was a guitar player one time out on the road with us, and I roomed with Bill some too. But I never went to bed before Bill did, because Bill smoked in bed, and he'd fall asleep, and it'd be going, and actually, that's actually what took him down in the end. But I would always stay awake, and I knew it, and more than one time, I would take that thing out of his hands because he was sitting up, and he was done, and it was burning, and I knew it. But a great guy, anyway, and I roomed with him, and I wanted to tell you that story for a while, too. But a lot of miles, lots and lots of miles, but it broke me in good to the road, I know that. Finally, at a point, they decided they didn't want to work as much, so they doubled their price and stopped working at half as much, and I couldn't do it anymore, so I went on. But that was my run with the Daredevils, and then at that point, that brought me back into the early 90s. Took a job with Ray Stevens in Branson. It was right in the boom era, years down there. Ray was in, and I spent 2 years with Ray. He's a good guy. We became good friends. The place, they needed to make a change in their sound man. They thought they were having trouble, and Ray was selling the place out. It was 2 shows a day, 6 days a week for 9 months. You'd have 3 months off, and then you'd go again, and it took its toll on him. There's no doubt about that. But I helped him acoustically treat that room and try to calm it down a lot. Seemed to work out. I still got the baffles up there that I put in. And this was in 91 or 2 or 3, something like that. But Ray was a good one. That worked out good. After that, I got a note that I went into, I stayed there when Ray quit and got out of that place. Oh, and by the way, Ray, he's probably got the first dime of the first dollar he's ever made, and that's how tight that dude is, man. But he's extremely smart, and he's done really well. He was a good businessman. His comedy, and he's an entertainer. His comedy, some people liked, some didn't. I mean, it was okay, that was fine. But that dude was a great blues piano player and singer. I mean, he was really good at it. And nobody really probably ever heard that unless you were in that theater and he was practicing in there day after day, or just when he'd come in to warm up. He was a something. Okay, moved on into, this was about 1996 is what I've got written down. There was another band that I didn't really mention a while ago. I did a run with Tex and the Roadies. That was Chris's band. I think we played Fernando's Hideaway and a few places in Reed Spring, and played around there for a while, and that was great fun. Then I went to work for a band. It was a bunch of lawyers. Really, well, it was a bunch of lawyers and Howard Cotner. And it was the M-Doc band. And actually, it started on the M-Dock on Table Rock Lake. That's where they, I guess, had their boats or whatever. And then they decided to add a bass player and drummers. First it was just guitar players and guys yelling and screaming and stuff. They added a drummer and a bass player, me, and I can't remember who the bass player was. Then they added, I talked them into adding a horn section, and when they added a horn section and Kelly Brown on piano, then they got going, and they got pretty darn popular, and they played and worked for a long, long time. I worked for quite a few years for those guys, up until probably about 2004. At that point, I got a call one day from, well, no, let me back up a little bit. That M-Doc thing ended up right around 2004. There was a Sister Cities tour, and we went to Japan and did a week's worth of stuff in Japan there. And then I hooked up with, actually, at the same time, we'd been on the front side of it, Andy Williams, people called, and they needed a percussion guy. Not a player, I was just a setup guy. They had a gal that played drums, and then there was a guy that did all kinds of orchestra percussion stuff. And I ended up going on an Asian tour with Andy's bunch, and that started out in Bangkok. Oh, geez. And then it went all through there. There was 10 days, 2 weeks worth at least. I ended back up in Tokyo. I had a week layover before I met the M-Doc band in Tokyo, and I was there by myself. And here again, here's this white, redheaded kid who does not speak anything, barely English, in Japan for a week by myself. And that was interesting. But I made it through it and hooked up with those guys and did that tour, and that was actually pretty fun, really. On into, I haven't talked about, I have a little demo recording studio at home. I do small projects. It's more of a hobby than it is anything else. I don't advertise it or anything. I had done some work for Emily Higgins in the past couple of projects. We were working on one. It was in 2014, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was. That's what you told me, I believe. We were working on a project of yours, and we were sitting and talking, and when I got started with this woman on this, I thought, well, okay, she's a singer-songwriter, and she wants to put a project out, and she wants to sell her project. I got about halfway through the thing, and I went, Emily, these songs are really pretty good. Actually, they're really good songs, you know, and she just kept spitting them out right and left. Anyway, got toward the end of this second project we were doing. She said, you know, Rick, I've never played in a band before. I'd like to play in a band. You want to play in a band? Well, okay, yeah. I mean, I hadn't in a long time, and at this point, I thought I was done. I didn't think I'd ever play again. Okay, I'll call George and Bo and see what they want to do and see what they think. And now it's Annie M and the Tornadoes, and I'm playing again. And it's a pretty good little acoustic-oriented type band that we play 90% stuff that we do is all Emily Higgins originals, and I couldn't be thrilled anymore. Where I'm not in a cover band anymore. I'm playing original stuff, you know. And actually, I'm about the end of the road on mine story, I think. So I'm just going to say that's my story. I'm sticking to it. And I think I'm done. Okay, yeah, you wanted to have questions, then
Hey, Rick.
I'll try.
Okay,
Mike.
I'll tell the audience that I hired Rick to do some sound for me. I had Norman and Nancy Blake at MSU twice. He did one of them, Dave Wilson did the other. And also Rick did Doc Watson for me at Carrington Hall Auditorium.
Yeah.
And both Doc and Norman called out what a great sound we had from the stage. He is the best acoustic guy. We have two of the best acoustic guys in this room right now. But I bet my life on your abilities to wire an acoustic stage.
Thanks. When was that? Do you remember what year it was?
1980s.
Was it? Okay.
J.J. Cale didn't use you, and I was very upset about that, and I think the crowd ended up being upset too.
Yeah. Don't know anyway. Kenny.
I knew you were in Texas and other places, which you didn't have time to be playing here. But had you been playing all that time, do you think you or Bo Brown would have played the most number of gigs with the most different bands?
I don't know. I'm older than he is, so I probably played more.
Needs two hats to put all the names of the bands on.
Joe, do you remember the name of that, the B-side of that Dot single?
I do. It was a song called Misfortune. Mark Morton wrote it. And I think we used Mike Mungy on sax on that side of that, too. I'm pretty sure we did. But good luck finding it.
There was one on eBay
Really?
a couple weeks ago.
Well, one of those records? I'll be darned.
I didn't pay a whole lot of attention.
I don't blame you.
Well, we had a few problems with the Esquires from time to time. No, no.
Well, and the first big live act of Lindbergh's was the just northeast of Texas All-American Road Show, featuring Swingfield Spring Band, Bandana, that's the same band, the AAA Spring Band, and the Undergrass Boys, and sometimes Rick. That was how we posted. This is April 1979, wow. And the Undergrass Boys, I think, was the first gig.
Probably so.
Besides
Probably.
the Undergrass Boys. And then they went on to rock.
It was fun. It was a good band, yeah. It was a good band. Well, I mean, you're playing one song for 30 minutes, you're jamming on one song for 30 minutes, and that's what we did. I mean, yeah, we'd play a set and maybe only play 4 songs or something. I don't know. No, it was fun.
Did you ever write it or finish one, or did it just go on and fade away? I know what you're talking about.
I guess finally when we got tired of playing, we figured out a place to end it. Somehow. And there were some of them that were set up that way. I know we did a Bob Dylan song called All Along the Watchtower that went forever. But that was just a characteristic of the band.
Did the Esquires ever play the Esquire?
I did. I can't remember who it was with. Maybe with them. I don't know. I recollect that might have been one of the spots where Irving played, and we had to haul a B3 up those stairs to get up there. And interesting. Go ahead. You got it.
The Esquire upstairs there in Jefferson and East St. Louis, they put a new, I was selling liquor in the place back in those days, and it was notorious. If you wanted to have a good fight, you just went right in there and picked on the biggest guy you saw.
I'm sure.
You had more trouble than you wanted. So people went there to see the fight. And there were a lot of ladies. So anyway, we go in there, and Ray Rutledge ran the place, and he was a tremendous
Yep.
fighter.
Yep.
And his specialty was, if you caused trouble, he and the bouncer would take you to the top of the steps and throw you down the steps. And if you felt like coming back up, he'd reach you about halfway up and give you a kick right under the chin. Most people never got up the second time. So we're in there one night. He's got a bartender on the south side along St. Louis Street, and he was a little short guy, but he was a real good fighter. And his deal was, he didn't wait to run around the bar to get in the fight. He'd put his hand on the bar and jump over the bar and hit you to midair. This little guy, and he could knock people out. So he's sitting there one night, and he goes to jump over the bar and hits his head on the new bar clock that they had installed that day, and he didn't know it. And he hit it so hard he cold cocked himself and fell back behind the bar and was no good in the fight. But that is all the true story. Robert said, I want a clock on the south side, and they forgot to tell the bartender.
Ernie Davenport was the bouncer.
There you go.
Jeez.
He was a pretty good fighter.
Now, one night, one time, that reminds me of a story. One time when I was with the Daredevils and we were in Vegas, I was babysitting Steve Cash, basically. And it was 4 a.m. or something like that, and we were in a club. And there were a couple of gals that were with us. And, I mean, we were just drinking, and they were just wanting us to pay for their way or something. And I think Cash was pretty drunk at that point. They got up and they left. They saw what, you know, they were done. They were done with us. They left. Cash got mad, started shouting out a few things, and there were 2 guys behind the bar that both probably were at least 6'2". They were big boys, and they came over the top of the bar. And when he came over the top of the bar at us, I stood up. I went, "We're out of here, guys." And we were lucky. We were very lucky. This is about all it was, but, you know. Anyway. Okay, I'm done. If anybody else wants to ask anything. Thank you.